but not today. You see what happens? You see what happens when a woman's involved? Everything just works out. You
Oh
know?
man, how are you? I know. It's been a little hazy, right, on IG.
Yeah,
I already know.
yeah. It's been crazy. This is the first live that we've done where we didn't have technical issues in the very beginning. So I feel like I've learned from my mistakes so far. So let's see.
It's happened to me. It
Yeah,
happens to the best of us.
yeah, definitely. But I appreciate you joining, and I know we're gonna have a great conversation today. So let's get jump in because IG don't be playing with that little 60 minutes that they give us.
For real.
It'll be over before we know it. You know what I'm saying? So just learning about you, meeting you for the first time last year for the festival, and even believe it or not, you're probably like my second podcast interview.
Really?
And I don't know, but maybe it's one of those, first or second podcast interview, where I was still in my thoughts about myself and didn't really want to talk about nothing, but but just hide behind the work and keep it pushing. But I
Right.
appreciate like you who reach out and request me to speak so that I get to stretch, and I can imagine that's something that you do for yourself and in your work period, because this isn't your first rodeo. You've been doing this type of work for a while, between radio, talk radio, and now
Right.
podcasting. So why don't you tell people a bit about your background in broadcasting?
Okay. So first off, I appreciate you. So you guys know, and I said this before, Afros and Audio was one of the first panel speaking festivals that I've been to. So shout out to you.
All right.
It's wonderful. I'm excited for the virtual one this year. And I just want to say thank you for people joining me. I see you on. Thank you on for the support. Protect your heart. I see you on the check-in.
Nice,
So
nice.
I just wanted to say that when I started doing podcasting at the time, it was internet radio.
Mhm.
And it was one of those situations where I started back in 2011. We didn't really know what we were doing. It was more like the live stream, Ustream era. And we had a show called Sexaholics at the time, and then it
Mhm.
became Get Focused, where we interview different independent artists, different music, and just pure talk for 2 hours. I did that for about, it was more like a hobby. We had fun. We were in the studio. We did that for almost 3 years. Once I met Michael Thomas at the Love Zone USA, he was actually in the music industry for a while, and he worked at SiriusXM for about 5 or 6 years, and he started his own station. So at the time, he was looking to just figure out a show with women, and then I came into that in 2013. The show was called The Girlfriend Network, which you were one of the
Yeah.
guests on, and Un as well was one of the guests. A few people that are on here, and we did that from, I would say, 2013 to almost 2019.
All right.
And then things started to shift because podcast became a boom. So just to give you a little background, I've hosted, and we used to do a lot of comedy skits back in the first show that I did, which was the Sexaholics and Get Focused. That was on Indie Republic. Once I got to the Love Zone, it was more the operations, the content, just kind of cultivating the guests, making sure all the shows on the network. When I joined the network, there was 1 or 2 shows, mostly music.
Mm.
And then at the end that we finished, we had about 6 shows. And I was a big part of just creating the topics, the conversations around it. Obviously the host, there was 3 women hosts at the Girlfriend Network, and they actually kept up the content, but we were responsible for getting guests and just keeping the actual news and trends up with the shows. So I was doing that for the Girlfriend Network. Then we had Plus Size Live Show. We had a Hip Hop Christian Connection, which is still going. And we had actually 2 other shows too. That 2 were music. One was Soul Paradise, and one was Top 8 Hits at 8. So that was kind of the responsibility on myself to make sure everything was running and going. So
Mhm.
that's what I did.
That's what's up. Do you think that it was kind of like accidental as far as you getting involved? Was it natural, a natural instinct for you, something you always wanted to do?
Well, it was accidental. That's funny that you said, because when I started doing the show on Sexaholics, it was actually one of my best friend's brother who was a promoter, and
All
this
right.
company called Making Money Entertainment. They threw these big boats on the Hudson in New York City. So for them to get more people to come, they started their own internet station. So
Okay.
her brother needed someone to fill in, and my best friend's like, "Hey, listen, they're going to be doing this Battle of the Sexes on this show. It's going to be streamed live. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Okay." And then I started vibing. It was three girls and two guys,
Mm.
and then we cultivated like this chemistry. So it was accidental how that happened. And I actually went to arts high school, so I played the flute and the piccolo. I went to Rosa Parks High School. Shout out to Rosa Parks High School. So I had background in music and
Right.
music theory. That was like my major in art. So I've always had some niche for like I guess creativity, but the accidental part was that I was invited and then I kind of stuck around. So
Yeah, yeah, you definitely stuck around, that's for sure. That's for sure. So why podcasting? Like for you, why have you stuck around?
so in the beginning, when it's just so many facets of podcasting, as you
Hmm.
know. In the beginning, when we first started in 2011, it was more so to just meet people, kind of network, get artists music out and things of that nature. But then what started to happen was there was possibilities of the first wave of podcasting in
Hmm.
2000. I would say 2011, 2013, that everybody started jumping on. Now it's another complete game.
Yeah,
At that time, we were trying to figure out how can we market ourselves, what made us different. And if you think of that era, YouTube was huge then. It was the people who are successes and huge influences were from that era, 2011 till now, that have
yeah,
been staying strong. So I stuck around because I really enjoy the atmosphere. We did all talk. We had segments. We had different segments. We had different guests. So I was into meeting and being around people and talking to people and hearing their stories. And I think that's what kept me around. Once we got into the Love Zone, it was more people involved. It was about a team of five, not a big team, and we were able to do stuff with Audible at the time, BB Kings at the time, Living Social, which I don't even think exists anymore
mm,
because our internet radio station was love based and relationships. So that's what I think I stuck around. I really I enjoy it. It's fun for me. It's like not really, I'm not saying it's not going to really work because it's
yeah.
hard work,
Oh heck yeah.
but for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. But it was enjoyable because you meet so many people. And I think that every time you meet someone, you hear their story, it kind of inspires you or teaches you something or brings out a part of you that you were like, oh, you know what? I didn't think about that. I never saw this way.
yeah,
So that's why I stuck around. I really like talking to people and I like to have different conversations.
yeah, yeah.
So that was one of the things.
Definitely, definitely. And I can't prove it, but I feel like web series and podcasting kind of came up at the same time, and web series took off because it's more relatable to that familiar way of consuming information and entertainment, right? The visual aspect of it all. And podcasting has been people are just getting into podcasting. Some of them think it just started, and it really hasn't. It's been around for a long ass time.
At least 15 years.
Yeah,
I think a good 14 to 15 years.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, but while I see, because we talk about podcasting being saturated, not for us,
Right.
we have to always remember that not for our voices is
Absolutely.
demonstrated, and we get to continue to create inside of the space. But I do feel like that web series, and one of the things that kind of caught my eye was that the web series were becoming more and more saturated, and there's a lot of great content by a lot of awesome creatives, but there's so much of it that I don't know what to stick with or who to go and check out, right? But podcasting is still that open space for us to find and connect with one another, you
That
know?
is true.
Yeah.
That is
So like I
true.
said, I can't really prove it, but I just feel like they came up at the same time and just kind of took two different paths to becoming what they are now. Podcast is just as relevant, you know?
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. That makes sense though, because if you look at the way even like social media, you think about Instagram in 2011,
Hmm.
2010, and Facebook, 2014, 2005, it does seem like that's when everyone was more global and was available to all the World Wide Web to
Hmm.
say, hey, I got a voice. Look at me. This is
Yeah.
my talent. And
Yeah.
it became kind of that facet of what was happening, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and podcasting becomes another avenue, and me, I'm a fiction person. I like to do the fiction in podcasting. And so it's like there's this other space where you can be and create your fiction and create your scripts and all this sort of thing. Besides just the web series or, trying
That's true.
TV pilot, it's definitely got all that going on. So what Podcasters of New Jersey is like, I'm gonna say your baby, one of your babies.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so what is it about it? See, I'm in Jersey City, and the festival's in Brooklyn, New York. So
Right, right, right.
leave Jersey to go and create in New York. But there's times where I feel that guilt, right? That New
Yes.
Jersey's right here, and there's so much that can be done, and it's such an untapped market here. So why did it come up for you to say, listen, this is where I am, and this is where I want to create?
The reason I came up with Podcasters New Jersey, at the time, there was a lot of different things that were happening with the Love Zone. A lot of the hosts, a lot of the people on there, some of them act, some of them are models. So things were shifting, people were getting busy. And I kind of started feeling a little bit alone with the team. Shout out to Ann. Ann was always there. And there was another young lady, Emily, who we were having a conversation. I'm like, man, everybody's being busy. I want to do something where I can get other people together that I can say, hey, you know what? I've been doing the Love Zone for 4 or 5 years. You might have not heard of me or seen me, but let's connect.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, you know what? Let's do like a meetup. And then we went and started the meetup. We actually had it at this place, which is one of my good friends' restaurants. It's Ola La Empanada. There's one in Jersey City, and there's one in Newark. He's a very good friend of mine. His name is Edwin Chino. He does a lot of different things, and he's involved. He said, you know what? Come to the restaurant and do it here. And I'm like, you know what? And I was surprised. I had a lot of good people. I had actually one of the PRX, if you guys are familiar with the Google Accelerator PRX, one of the winners that was actioning the program came to the meetup. It was about, I would say, 8 of us, 9. And I was, we just ate, we talked, everybody introduced themselves. And that's how that started.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I just wanted to feel like there's other people doing what I'm doing, not just my team, because everybody got so busy. I was like, wait, I feel like we're doing this alone, me and Ann and everything. And that's what started. And then after I hosted that meetup, I would say maybe a month or two, Anthony Frazier, he's a founding member of Newark Venture Partners.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the Audible building in Rutgers. And he also has his own media company and podcasting live company called ABF Creatives. He invited me. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of Anthony. He said, you know what, come and do your meetup over here. And I was like, oh my God. And I've met him in a couple of different events, something that happened a couple of years ago at Grammys. It was like a Grammys live thing where they did this in live podcasting, and me and him talked, and we knew people, and he was just so amazing for that. And, with that, I built a relationship with him. People started coming to the building at Rutgers in Newark, and it just kind of started moving fast. And I tell you, which is funny because we have conversations, even when I met you last year, about the work you put in to do Afros and audio, and how you were like shocked when everybody I saw your face saying, this is amazing, this is great, this is a great, and you're just like, I'm feeling it, I'm trying to get there. And it was the same thing with, the podcast meetup. A lot of people started coming in and kind of became an incubator where people started, working with each other, and they're like, thank you for this, thank you for that. And I'm the type of person that I'm like, we're all here for community. I guess maybe it's more so the background in social work that I have that makes me feel like community is important. And I just feel like it was lacking severely in New Jersey. Everything I saw was New York. You're in Jersey City. I'm in West Orange. At the time, I was in Bloomfield.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like Newark was one of the quintessential places down the street from the train station. Right. It's super progressive. There's so many different amazing things happening. And I was lucky and fortunate that Anthony was like, come over. And that's how that became the thing. And Anne, who's a great, just a great supporter. She's worked as an assistant producer on the Love Zone. She stepped up. She became my co-organizer, and we also started doing business. And she's been the person right by my side. I'm super grateful for her. And she has that same drive and that same passion. And I think that's why it meshes really well with the vision that I had and the vision that she has and our vision for podcasters in New Jersey.
That person that steps up and says, I'm right here with you. I share your vision and I have my own vision and let's go.
Yes, exactly.
It is really everything. And we're going to be talking to Ann on our IG Live. Can't wait for that conversation. And we're going to have Anthony as well. He's on here, and he actually just agreed to do our final installment with ACAST that we'll be doing. So, and I'm just now getting to know that brother. So that's the thing too, is like, and I spoke with someone else about this in the interview I did yesterday, that a lot of people might not recognize, because when you're leading something, they might see you as somebody who knows what the hell you're doing, or or got it all under control. And it's like a lot of times when we are creating community, it's because we're seeking community, right? Like that's what
Right.
I'm looking for people who not only I can support, but that can support me, and
Absolutely.
there with me too, so that I don't feel so alone in
Yeah.
the work that we're doing, especially when we're on the same vibe.
True.
That's the important part. So I definitely resonate with that, for real, for real.
It's
So
real.
so that brings me up to that question, the importance of a good team. And I know you have Ann, and you have the meetup and all that sort of thing. And so for a lot of creatives, and this is something that we're trying to like get over that hump. It's 2020. We really need to, at this point, to be able to look up from our work, look to our left and our right, and get that support.
Yes.
Right? Collaborate. Know that there is support to be had. It's one thing to say I don't have support, but there's another thing to be said. I haven't asked for support to know if
Correct.
I have it or not. You know what I'm saying? And so it's very valuable to have a team. And so when did you say, what, I really need support. I really need the collaboration and the community behind me.
I said it was something that kind of happened organically because
Hmm.
it was one point, I would say maybe 3 months into the 2 months, 3 months into the meetup. I'm like, well, this is a lot. I'm in school. I'm getting my master's. It was like my first year. It was work. It was just a lot of things that you know yourself to live. A lot of us, a lot of creators, even on here, you have many different things that you do,
Hmm.
specifically in the tri-state. And I'm sure it's becoming everywhere, even worldwide, that we have different hustles or different projects or different things. So it was one of those things when I asked her, I say, look, Ann, I'm doing this. And I reached out to another person who worked with me and they stepped up and like, you know what? I want to do it. I do want to put myself out there. And I also think sometimes it's giving the other people the opportunity
There you
to
go.
want
Yeah.
to shine.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like Ann was a lot of the time doing a lot of assistant production work, and I was in the background too. It was mostly the host. And we started going out to our own events and we started meeting other people. And other people like, well, why you guys are not out more? And then we're just like, you know what, you're right. And it was just one of those situations where I felt that she stepped up. Even Tony, who he helped a lot in the beginning of the meetup, and I thank him because he worked with me in the Love Zone. They just wanted to do it. They initiated and
Yeah.
they made the attempt, and that's what I want. I didn't want to force feed anyone that did
Yeah.
not want to be a part of it because I'm sure I've had experience with that, and you probably as well. Many of us, if you can't make someone do what you want them to do.
Right.
So it was one of those situations where it kind of happened organically, but I did ask. For
Hmm.
sure I did. I was like, you know what? I want you to host this time. Can you come and speak on this? And the skills and expertise that they had with certain things with production, editing, and just content creating, I needed that at that moment. And they said yes, and they did a great job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Want it and need it, and you really touched on it where, and I'm a life coach, so I was just talking to my client about this other day about that level of support. Like we want to, sometimes you don't realize that not only you showing up creates possibility for somebody else, but
correct.
but you're also giving someone an opportunity to support you. People who are just waiting to be able to support and or show up, but they haven't found an opportunity, and we're over here not willing to ask, and have that clear request to get that clear, that clear result back. So I definitely respect that. I respect that. All right, so you have mad shows. You've done a lot of shows. you know,
You're
podcast.
like, you're doing a lot. You're doing the most. What's
Yeah,
going on there?
yeah. I've looked on, Podcast in New Jersey. Everybody go and check out that site, podcastinj.org.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're producing and supporting a lot of podcasts. Which one, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but which one is like the first one? Which one is the one that you really want to see gain more notoriety and really go from that? I'm
How
sure
you gonna
all of them, but what's your love? What's your love child over there?
how you just gonna put me on? You're making the
Not my
parent
favorite
pick
way,
their favorite child.
yeah, but no, what's the one that's like that started it all, where you're like, this one, this is where, this is the cornerstone for which all the other podcasts really get to go.
I would say when, just to give you a little bit to understanding why. So I started Podcasters Unlimited, I would say in June.
Mm,
End of May, I made it LC. It's our consulting and our podcast network. And the first show that we cultivated was Pod Cipher.
Yeah.
And that to me is our baby, because like, right, I told you guys, and I was telling you, I didn't host it. I host a show maybe about 2 or 3 years before I just was in the background. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't host for a very long time. So when I started podcasting in New Jersey, I started wanting to be like, you know what, I kind of want my own podcast again. I want to, want to be, and then I was scared. I was like, I don't know. So I feel like Pod Cipher, the way that we came out the gate with that was just have people like you, people like Freddie, people like Alexandra, Anthony, just a lot of times in the spaces that we're in the particular podcast that we have niche audiences, we're not able to say certain things about just current events, social justice, and pop culture. And to me, that was one of the things I wanted to do, is start like a cipher of conversation
Yeah.
between podcasters, which I think is important, because a lot of times we are interviewing a lot of different people, and sometimes people are not asking us how we're doing
Yeah.
and what we think,
Yeah.
because it's that back and forth conversation is more geared to that person you're interviewing and
Mm-hmm.
what the audience wants to hear from them. And yeah, you have banter back and forth, but that's I guess my baby, because from that, I was able to do Poetry Go Live, which is a show that it was on YouTube, and I was able to oh, I was able to make that into a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just, it kind of glitched a little bit.
Yeah. Yes.
I was able to make it, and it was about Longsworth. He's interviewing different poetry, spoken word artists and poets, and he's just doing that. I was able to put that show on after thinking about cultivating Pod Cipher. Then I did Podcasters Unlimited, the content I do, which I have my meetup tomorrow. I'm gonna be able to put that once a month so people can hear that playback of that conversation, and those professional people who I've had, people like Aaron Price from Tech United. I've had Noelle Silver, who was formerly of NPR, and now she heads Hacker University, which she's doing diverse program for different coding and different systems and engineers. So people like that, I have that information and that audio, so anybody wants to hear. So I feel like Pod Cipher to me was one of the ones that I wanted to put out, just because of the background of social work that I'm in my last year coming up of getting my master's in social work. And I just feel like a lot of the things, I work in community organizations, I do behavioral assistant work, I work with families. I wanted to talk about that. And I just felt like once this climate hit, we just had to put the show out there. And Anne was like, yes, I'm going to do it with you. Let's do it. And I think that's more so what started, everything, all the other shows, like, getting my confidence, even though I was running the incubator. Now Podcasting New Jersey is an incubator, and I'm helping a lot of different people. I was out the game. And
Yeah.
once I got back in the game, I was like, oh, I'm rusty. Yeah, I feel a little nervous. Oh, this is different, because right now, Talib, as everybody know on here, everyone was on IG Live. You
Yeah.
having so many glitches with Zoom, whatever technology you're using, it's not as stable as it was
Yeah.
pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of difficulties, but we did our last episode and recorded it Monday. So our 8th episode will be airing August 7th, and we're done with the season. So we did like an 8th season episode, since we have a lot of other shows
Okay.
coming out. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the
But
one that kind of
that's right. And that's like a part of the game, right? Is learning your capacity, learning your limitations, learning how you want something to look. We talked
yeah,
to Hayes of the Breaks Media Network, and it's really about, like, these are this is our platform, right? This
correct.
what we're talking about right now. We can say whatever the hell we want, whenever we want to, because it's ours. And really having that authenticity about having our own voices and being able to speak from it however it is we want. And that comes from growing up. That comes from growing up in the spaces, and the experience, and or just growing up with yourself and recognizing, look, I get to say whatever the hell I want to say.
Yeah, true.
Because and who doesn't want to be a part of it can, there's like 3 exits.
Seriously, right?
And and I appreciate the audience. I appreciate um the support, but things have got to be on our own terms, because we're creatives, and it gets to, I think, not having that freedom to be multifaceted, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Or that freedom to just speak and be who we want to be at any given moment has really been a deliberate act on us, and it's kind of violent, when you think
yeah,
about in a way. So I'm glad to see, that now that it's 2020, we free people. I say that a
that's
lot.
true.
you know, that we're acting accordingly. You know, that we're acting accordingly, and podcasting is one of those opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
And so, speaking of current affairs and what's been going on, how did you were doing meetups in person? You know, I was doing a festival in person.
I know.
Change the way you do things and your business. How long did it take you to say, okay, shit, I got to do it this way now?
So we did the last meetup that we had was in February, and I actually had a studio. I had a few people from different studios in the area come in and have like a inside the podcaster studio. So the everyone from the meetup was able to ask various questions about each studio. We had about I think it was two different studios come in, and that was the last one. And I think once I started seeing that, I was supposed to have my 1 year celebration, March 26th of this year, and I was gonna have this big thing.
Nope.
Aaron was gonna come. Yeah, Aaron was gonna come. We were gonna get
Yeah.
it on live. We were gonna have a
Wow.
big set. Nothing. So once we started pushing back, I started seeing that it kept pushing back. It kept pushing back. Then I spoke to Anthony. He's like, "Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen." So we're like, so you know what? We kind of regrouped, and then in April we did the first one. So it took about like a month. We
Yeah.
missed that March, and then we did it in April. And we're
Yeah.
like, you know what? Let's celebrate. Let's do this virtually. Let's celebrate it. And we got Aaron on, and everything worked out. So we did it 13 months instead of the 1 year mark, but we did it. So but I would say it took us like about 30 days because we just kept like, okay,
Wait.
waiting. And it was like postpone,
Yeah.
postpone. Maybe it's gonna
Yeah.
change. It was over. So we kind of was like, you know what? We're gonna change the direction and just capture it. And it kind of gave us the, believe it or not, we had a lot of good guests the year before, and we did a lot of live. Some
Hmm.
of it we recorded, but we weren't honing in on really capturing the audio and the content.
Yeah.
And it was just because I felt it was very organic and authentic. Everybody kind of, chopping it up, having fun. It wasn't really like super, it wasn't on our mind or a super idea at the time. It was just, let's see how this works. But I
Yeah.
think this happening kind of allowed us to have more of that podcaster mindset again. Like,
Mhm.
wait, this is audio, this is content. What are we doing? Let's put it out. And I
Yeah.
think that's what kind of was the brainchild after that. Like, okay, now we're going to do the flagship show named after our company, Podcasting Unlimited, and we air what we're doing now, talking once a month, like our meetup. If anybody was not able to catch it, there goes the replay, and it's
Hmm.
there in a space where anybody, even on YouTube, anybody can catch it. So that's what happened. We were like, oh my God, this is never going to happen.
Yeah.
We're like, we're never going to meet in person.
I know. I know. I was in a resistance for way too long. I was just like, it's gonna stop soon, right? We're gonna
Nope.
no, not at all. So I mean, you can see it went from our festival went from June to November. So that's how far along I was in the resistance of it all, and and so I think it's really great. And I think one of the things I really love about podcasting audio is how much of a cornerstone that is of content, right? From audio, so much can come out of that,
Right.
whether you're doing the like you guys do, and I almost forgot something. I'll come back to that. But like you guys do with the Skype and it's
All
video,
right.
you get to use a video, you get to use the audio. Then if you
Right.
want to do a spin-off of something, another conversation, it can become live. All these ways in which this can be expanded, whereas you start from the top of it, it's almost like you've hit that ceiling. So that's why I
Correct.
audio so much, and that opportunity to just go wherever you want to go with it, right?
For
It's
sure.
dope, and the thing I wanted to say is that what you just said, inside the Black podcaster studio or podcaster studio, I don't know if you said black, but anyway, we, our final installment of ACAST is inside the Black podcaster studio, and I thought that was just out of the air, so
There you go.
not trying to bite off of y'all. I didn't even know you had
No, no, no. It
but
was,
yeah.
and actually, the people that we have Bricks Labs, shout out to them, and they're Black owned, and we have Bravery Studio, which is Latino owned.
All
So
right.
they were the two studios that we had. It was
Nice.
pretty cool, but no, it's no big deal. I think that's great. I think when you say something like inside the podcaster studio or inside, you really get into the mind of what,
Yeah.
deep diving into what is their format and what was their plan, their reasoning behind starting the studio, what different types of levels that they had to go through, what things do they have to offer? What is their aspiration for their brand and for their studio? And I think that was one of the last times that I was able to see. And that's the last picture that I have. If you go to Podcasters of New Jersey
Yeah. That's it.
.org,
Yeah.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
our last picture. But I mean, it was a great experience doing it in person. I mean, I hope, you know, we could get back to that, but
One of these
I,
days. One
yeah, I
days.
right. One of these days, right. But I'm
Yeah.
excited for Afros and Audio that's going to be in November. I mean, it was a very beautiful experience for us last year. You know, one of the we came out in the Amsterdam news as
Yeah.
well. And the picture that I had, shout out to TK. TK, I'm always back and forth with her. It was me, her, Conscious, and Ann that was on the panel. And we spoke about doing stuff virtually. So I was used to that life
Yeah.
of doing things and never seeing people. I mean, to live, we did a show for almost 5 years, and we never met one of the hosts because
Wow.
they lived down in
Yeah.
Trent. So that was different. So
Wow.
to me, it was like, wow, this is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. And that's it was the resistance even having this virtually is that the point was to put faces with names, to be able to look each other in the eye and say, oh, you really do exist. you know, you really are right here and you're accessible and it's not just that thing where I say, oh, send me your number and I'll reach out to you or whatever.
Right.
We're actually doing this in real time. And so I'm still very much committed to that vision. And that just brings me back to even what you just touched on, that intention and that why behind things. Because especially in podcasting where podcasting is such a long game, for you to start to see the results of that vision, of that long-term vision,
Absolutely.
getting the downloads, you're getting the streams, people know who you are just by your name, It's such a long game that sustainability, the statistics about how folks come in and after the first year never release another episode,
Right.
So what are your thoughts and your tips around sustainability, sticking with it,
It's like anything else. You have to be consistent. You
Mm-hmm.
have to enjoy it, and you have to do what works for you.
Word.
Some of us are parents and some of them are not, but as a parent, people say whatever works with you and your child and your children and your family, you have to make it work for you. A lot of times we feel that, specifically, I think new podcasters, we want everything to be perfect, everything to be, there's no mistakes, everything has to be down to a T, and that's never going to happen. Even
Yeah.
with seasoned people like myself, you, and many others that I've spoken to, things are always going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. One time I was having an interview and my audio started breaking. The live started breaking up. I was like, oh my god, I was embarrassed. And the person I was interviewing was like, that's no big deal. It's gonna happen. And
Yeah.
this is someone who's done many podcasts and has sold podcasts. So I think it's just all about you being consistent and being able to enjoy, and you have to do what works for you. A lot of times, this is what we did at the Love Zone. I think that was the radio mentality. When you look at traditional radio or satellite radio, or even just, radio in the tri-state, Hot 97, they go on every single day or weekly, non-stop.
Yeah. Yep.
We did that at the Love Zone.
Mm-hmm.
We would go from September. There was like 2 years that we went all the way. We didn't have a break.
Mm.
Maybe like around Christmas,
Mm.
we were like doing reruns or repurposing content. And after our life started changing, a lot of us started getting different, jobs or school or just things leveling up or doing different professions. You cannot do that. So I think that maybe working with seasons, that's what we're doing. We wanted to
Yeah.
go longer, but we're doing what we're working for. You have to do what works for you. Also, too, you got to keep in mind there's about almost a million it's about 1 million podcasts now. They just reported, I think, iLabs, over 1 million. So people are scared to lose that visibility and that, consistency with their fans and audiences. I understand that, but sometimes you have to do what works for you. If you're going to go year round, bless your heart.
Yeah.
If you're going to go every day, bless your heart, because it's a huge commitment. So I call it like the podcast blues. It's one of those situations where you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to go live. And the next thing you know, you put out 2 episodes. You're like, this is too much work, I'm done. And I think to avoid that is getting support too, having support, having a community. Say, hey, listen, you know what? I did this, I did that. This didn't work for me. What format do you think? I think I was ranting too long. I didn't, just asking questions. And I do want to give a shout out to Danielle, Woman of Color. She's
Nice.
created an amazing platform, and she's done wonders. It's so many women on there of color who speak on and ask different questions, and that community is very inspirational. And thank you so much. And she was one of those people that you would see cultivating that. And a lot of these women who are on this group, they continue to do their podcasts. Sometimes you want to give up, and I think having support, being consistent, and doing what you're doing, and doing what's logical within your time
Yeah.
frame.
Yep.
Sometimes
Yeah.
people want to reach too fast, and we could talk about Joe Rogan all day. Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was on air for almost 12 years. 12 years. Yes, in 12 years, we might never see $100 million, but it was 12 years of his
Mm-hmm.
work. That's a long time. And
Yeah.
it's not an overnight success like people want it to be. And I think that you made a good point when you talked about oversaturation. There's oversaturation of different podcasts and also in social media. I feel like the presence of social media make people think that everything's overnight, everything is quick, everything is just
Mm.
an instant gratification. And that's
Yeah.
not the
And that's
case. There,
first. Yeah. Yeah. That's really
so,
just smoke and mirrors when it comes to
right.
uh you know. Um it's great that you mentioned a lot of that. It's like start ugly. Start
Right.
not finish anything. You can't finish a thing without starting a thing. You know what I mean? That's just impossible. And just being willing to be with it. Because there is success to be had, and even especially people of color, we definitely got to recognize that we do a lot of shit that's innovative, that's around the way that things are done linear. We have to
Absolutely.
in order to create something great for ourselves and for the people who are either watching us or listening to us. And there's opportunity to be had. My thought though is that we have to do it together. We have to create it together. If we don't invest in the bag, there's nothing to pull from the bag. We are it. And one of the things I love about podcasting as well, which is a lot of things, is that there isn't a real gatekeeper until you get inside of these platforms that now are telling you how to create and when to create and what you can say and what you can't. As an independent creative, there is so much lane to run inside of podcasting, and it's really about finding your own voice, which is natural and organic, but being natural and organic with that, not trying to fit into what you think people might want for you, because there is an audience for everybody. you know
True.
there's an audience for everybody, and somebody's waiting for you to speak your weird ass shit to them so they can be like, oh, you weird as fuck too, great, now I can rock with you. But when
Right.
you're trying to fit into a box or what you think it's supposed to look like, you know. And you guys were the first when I came on Love Zone with these segments. You like, hold on, we're gonna play some music. I was like, you about to do what?
Exactly. Right.
There on the side listening to music, but this is different from anything else that I've been on or listened to. That's dope. That's what people resonate with, is when it doesn't sound like everything else. And I think that one of the opportunities here is just for you to do your thing,
Right.
whatever that looks like, you know,
For sure.
whatever that looks like. So that's dope. That's dope. That's dope. All right. So what do you, out of all the work you've done, what would you say you're the most proud of, right now? And has it happened yet? Are you still looking for that proudest moment?
Uh, I want to address a few people were saying the perfectionist mindset and the mentality. That is true. We have to get out of that. And I
Oh,
think a
hell.
lot of time we all do that. We all do that. And I would say for me, one of the proudest moments for me, there have been so many just because I've been able to really be authentic and be myself. And I'm a person who is about meeting and building with people and giving that energy. And what I give to you is going to always be who I am. And I think that one of the things that I feel the proudest is that I was able to, actually start my own company in consulting and start my own network.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the offset, to that was everything that happened. I was working in the Love Zone. I started podcast in New Jersey, the meetup, and then we did the website, we did everything. And Michael Thomas, who was the creator and founder of the Love Zone, who actually taught me that format you're talking about, the segment, the organization, the intros, the outros, where to put commercials, and all that. That was his training from his broadcasting days, because he was on WNJR in Newark for many years and CBS
Mm.
as well as Sirius Satellite, he suddenly passed.
Oh wow. Okay.
It was sudden. He passed in February, and by him passing, we always would have all these conversations of all the things that he achieved and things that he wanted to do. And when I told him I was doing podcasts in New Jersey, he was proud of me. He's like, that's your baby, do it. And once I felt like he was gone and the love zone, everything kind of was already at a halt, and it was completely dissolved after him passing. I said to myself, and Anne, Tony, Nicole, Karishma, Tahira, Chris, all of these people were part of the Love Zone legacy. Rolls Royce, so many people that I can name, and it was like, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
And I've been not that I was hiding behind the Love Zone. It was more so I was a little bit fearful of doing something on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once, all that happened and I saw what happened to him, and then COVID happened, I was like, you know what, I have to do something that's, I'm going to empower other people like Anne, like Brianna, who's part of the team, Stephen, who's an advisor and part of our team. Like, it's just one of those situations where I had to get out and do something. And I'm about building with people. Helena, she's part of Podcast in New Jersey. Shannon, I met so many people, and they can tell you that I'm always like, hey, you okay? That's just my personality. So I feel like the one thing that I'm the proudest of, and I'm a proud of everything I've done, but me putting myself out there, even doing this and talking to you, I was always very behind the scenes. And
Yeah.
I think that prior to going on the Love Zone, I hosted and I did all these things, and I was excited, but I got kind of caught up with just learning the back end and learning how to do that. And I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be judged.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, I don't want to say imposter syndrome, because, we go through that a lot,
Yeah.
specifically our people too.
Abs-
It's just one of those situations where I felt like, no, I'm not good enough. Like, they're good enough. I'm helping them. I don't need to be there. And when you feel like you don't deserve things, you don't deserve, that's one of those things where you're like, wait, let me check myself. I love myself. I love people around me. So why am I feeling this way? So I think that was my proudest moment, to say, you know what, I'm going to do it. Hey, Latrice, hey, I'm going to do it.
and
I'm going to do it. I'm going to get to it. And I'm
yeah.
like, I'm going to get to it. And, it was a lot of help with the sport that I had with, my boyfriend
Mm-hmm.
and, my son and my family and, people like Ann, my friends. It was one of those things where I said, I got to do it. And that's what I was proud of, just putting myself out there and not feeling like I don't deserve this, because I feel like I've put in work, and yet I still have more work to put in.
Yeah.
Once you, so.
Yeah, yeah, well, definitely, absolutely, and it's it's that expansion of life, being able to put yourself. When you start, life just expands. You've met new people, you've had different
Right.
experiences, and you have new opportunities because the people you meet now say, like, Anthony, come on over here. It's like you don't know the end result. You might have a vision, but only until you get to that final. There's no
Correct.
line. There's just the next level. And that's what's dope about finally having enough of your own bullshit, really. At the end
Like,
of
I'm
the
tired.
day,
Right.
at the end of the day, and I say two things. One is that your greatness is not about you. There's people in this world who are waiting for you to show up so that they can show up, period.
Okay.
And the second thing is that people say life is short, but it's the longest thing that I'm going to experience or you're going to experience, your specific life, right? So
That's
it's
true.
up to us to create it and be with it however we want to be with it, period. Otherwise, what are we doing? What are we doing? Consistently living for others or believing that other people are considering us in any type of way when they're considering their own selves, and what they've got going on.
That's true.
So it's really important for us to decide and to show up and to show up for ourselves and for each other, because it's a two-way street, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And once he passed, I was like, my goodness, like, what's going to happen now? And it was,
Hmm.
I felt like everything was a standstill. And I'm like, he's always believed in me. My boyfriend, my friends believed in me. And I'm like, I'm the only person kind of in my way, pretty
Hmm.
much. For whatever reason it is, this has to give. And I feel like it's one of the fastest growth that I had, especially interviewing people like you, Latrice, and the people that I mentioned prior, even
Mhm.
with podcast or with Pod Cipher and the podcast I'm doing, I learned a lot about myself and my own biases within what's happening with COVID, within what's happening with the pandemic, with the racial tension. I learned a lot about myself, and I continue to learn about myself with through others and empower. I get empowered by other people as well. And that's the point, to just empower other people. And you're such a life coach too, because you made a good point when you said, I'm showing up so others could show up. And I think that's one of the powerful things. Once I saw the growth even in Anne and then in
Mhm.
myself, and I started seeing, people like Brianna, who I used to work with at the Love Zone, and now she's part of my team and she sees it. And I see everyone evolving. They have their own dreams and their own things that I'm always going to support no matter what. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah, yeah,
this is happening so fast, and it
yeah.
kind of started that way.
Yeah, and it's
So
important. That's what you're speaking of, is that abundance, right? And that ability to champion each other. And we've definitely seen a shift in that over the years, over the past few years, where especially people of color are starting to be able to not be so scarce around opportunities and ways in which we can support one another, because this is how we win. It's how we won in the past, it's how we'll win today, is being able to see each other and champion each other and give one another space to grow and spread their wings. It's a win-win, and it's nothing wrong with that. So I respect that, I really appreciate that. So we're coming down in like 13 minutes. Like I said, IG don't play. So what's your long-term vision? I'm sure you have one. Where are you going to be at when it's all said and done with the work that you're doing?
I really, since I got into originally when I before everything, I had my degree in business, and I did that for quite some time. I sold life insurance. I did all these things, and to say the least is that I'm a person who knows how to transition and
Mm-hmm.
knows how to change when change is due. So I see long term for me is combining a lot of the work that I'm doing with social work and kind of tying it into podcasting, as well as to being able to tell these stories and my stories and things that I've went through, and some fictional things that kind of intertwine, and being able to have people on my team have these stories even come onto television and streaming. I'm hoping for something that I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm working towards doing things like that. I'm actually working with someone who works and has a lot of different contact within television and streaming, and they're looking for podcast talent to represent, and they're looking for
Nice.
scripted talent. So I'm involved in that as well. So I do see a lot of that. Like I said, I have a background in music. From playing the flute and the piccolo back in Rosa Parks High School, and it was
Mm-hmm.
all about plays and different. I love theater. I love that. So I see myself combining social work and podcasting, and bringing people around me and bringing their stories to life, hopefully to television and streaming services, as well as using the platform that I have to elevate different causes, specifically, like, I told you about the 13th. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm also working with Nivi. She's the creator of the Soapbox Project. I'm sure you guys heard of her newsletter. She's creating a letter of awareness. And what I'm doing is doing a lot of combining action plans and research of different organizations and different things that people need to be aware of, in combination to a summary of different books, to kind of have people talking that probably don't have time to read. And she does this so well with her Soapbox Project. She does a lot of climate change, and now she's getting into the social justice. So I see myself in those realms of creating and social change and social justice. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't pinpointed yet, because everything is happening so fast that and that fast meaning like the changes that we have
Mm-hmm.
with COVID, and there's so many uncertainties, but I do know that that's one of the things I want to do, is work in those realms. So I'm excited about that. We
Awesome.
do we do have like 10 minutes though, you're right.
Yeah, and you know what's when I talk to people, and you're very generous with um your ability. Like, you shouted out probably like 35 people. You know what I mean? Like, at least 35 people.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna make it like 42 by the time
Yeah.
we're done, if you're okay with
Yeah, but that's dope. People who are, because that's how, again, that's the win-win right there.
right.
As you elevate, you bringing folks with you, and they're bringing you with them.
Mm.
And that's super dope. I see you wherever you see yourself, for sure. And it's really helping me to understand that there's work to be done in New Jersey as well, and I get to be a part of your movement as well, you know, because you're right here. So look for me to start showing up a bit more, because it would be great to be able to collaborate in my own backyard, you know.
We would love that. And I know that a lot of times you were telling me, and I get it because you had so much going on, but I think now with everything that has transpired with the time that we've had to reflect, we feel like now we have to make a little more time. I feel we're kind of like pushed into that corner to kind of focus on what we could do that. And I think that it takes, whenever you can, you're there. It just takes time to know when you can go
Yeah,
and do things.
yeah. Those are
Hey, Sally, what's up? And shout out to Stephanie from Mocha Minutes. I see you. Thank you for the love. Just, you
love.
know, that's 37. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and I appreciate everyone for joining. So before we, you know, wrap it up, tell everybody how to find you, you know, where to go, what's next, you know, if there's something next for you that you want people to look into. Or
So you can reach me here. This is my personal, and I went on my personal because I usually never do and talk about what I do on my personal account, which is Denese and I. You can find me here. My podcast is Unlimited, and on Instagram as well as Facebook. I'm also at Podcasters New Jersey on Instagram as well as Facebook and Twitter. And you know, right now we're cultivating different shows. We have Dissecting Your Perspective, what Jelani wants, who, you know, we've helped cultivate that show, and he does production. We do some production and content creating for him, and also Pod Cipher, Podcasters Unlimited, Poetry Globe, and we're working on a few other shows that I'm hoping to get rolling by the end of the next couple months. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
all right,
Hi,
well,
Lisa.
that's some good stuff. That's some good stuff, and all of those are at Podcasters of NJ, at
Yeah.
Podcasters Unlimited.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Podcasters Unlimited. Podcasters, no, you're right. You go to
yeah.
podcastersunlimited.net, and I do consulting, and I do any consulting that you might need. You can find all that information on podcastersunlimited.net, and you also can see the network shows and the shows that we have there on that site as well. So check us out.
Okay, awesome. Well, just to wrap it up, tell you guys what we got going on next. We have August 12th coming up. Latrice Sampson Richards, who's right here, is going to do a workshop on overcoming your virtual stage fright, just like kind of we talked about, where
Yeah,
it's time to get in front of our work, you know,
it
and
is.
stand by it proudly, and just say, I'm here, you know. Stop being so committed to being invisible in the great work that we're creating, right?
Absolutely.
Because it deserves that. So we've got Latrice doing that, and we've got that's obviously sponsored by ACAST. So we're excited about that. We have Ann
Yes.
up, so shout out to Ann, who works with you. Like I said, Latrice is like my Ann right now, and I love her for her support and just stepping up. And I've seen every time I work with you, Ann is right there, so I know what that looks like. So shout out to.
Absolutely.
And we're just gonna keep moving this forward. I will be showing up and you know, just supporting Podcasts in New Jersey, because you guys deserve that.
Thank you. And tomorrow's our virtual meetup. We will be interviewing Melinda Whitstock. She's the creator of Podopolo, which is a podcast app for podcasters to engage, monetize, and do gamification. So
Okay.
that's tomorrow at 7
Oh,
p.m. on our live.
all
It's
right.
going to be dope to talk to her. And also, you could check out To Live and Freddie, and we have few other people that are coming out on Pod Cipher, as well as the Tree Sampson's going to be on Pod Cipher episode, which comes out every Friday night at
Nice.
9 p.m.
And where can they find Pod Cipher, the episodes that have already been released?
Spotify, Apple, Radio Public, Breaker. We are on every single platform you can think of. Anchor, all of them
Oh,
right now.
all
So you
right.
can go Apple Pod, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public.
And search
Uh,
Pod Cipher.
yep, Pod Cipher, Overcast, all of those.
Where? Y'all know.
Everywhere, because you started it's like 27 of them.
That's what's up. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And
I appreciate you.
just continue to do work. I'm looking forward to you guys at the next festival, which is November 14th and 15th. Early bird tickets are on sale right now. Just go to afrosandaudio.com. Go for it.
I want you to come on too to Podcasters in New Jersey so we can interview you possibly maybe in October. So
I'm with it.
watch out for that so we could talk about the festival and talk about all of that.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
and we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye bye.